Hey guys, before we get into today's episode, I just want to give a quick heads up. This conversation includes some heavy and sensitive topics, things like mental health, trauma, and other experiences that might be triggering for some people. If that's you, please take care of yourself. Reach out to someone you trust or contact a local support service. These conversations are real and raw, but they're shared to bring hope, healing, and understanding. Welcome back to the Rise Above podcast. This week I'm joined by my wife, Lidia Weston. We just thought we'd come on and talk about what we've been up to the last few weeks, just continually getting questions about our marriage and our journey, and got a few questions asked as well that we'll answer and talk about. But yeah, I just thought it'd be something different this week and bring you on, and so it's good to have you, my love.
Thanks. You forgot to say my amazing, wonderful, beautiful wife, Lidia Weston. Yeah.
Something like that. But I will say before we go, never ceases to amaze me. We're late today, which is one of my big pet hates. And I tell her a time to be ready by, and it's like she goes, oh, I can drag it all the way right to the end. And so we're late. But no matter how long she was up,
Like
6 o'clock?
late.
So you had 2 hours, 50 minutes to be ready, and we're late.
Yeah, well, I just like to give myself some time.
Apologies to the team.
You know that meme where it says, and it's like someone like looking out the window, and it's like me waiting for it to be 5 minutes to when I'm meant to leave so I can start rushing or something like that. That's me.
Anyway.
I'm just cruisy, you know.
You're definitely not cruisy, because then you're stressed and you're
cruisy,
you're rushing and you're
cruisy and then stressed.
Yeah, anyway. I'll accept your apology. What's been happening?
Nothing. No, not much. Just been hanging out with you. And Addie, my son, just started going to high school, so that's been a hectic transition emotionally for me. So just been dealing with that. And yeah, like you just said, we've been I've just been getting a lot of questions and having a lot of conversations with women lately about our marriage. I actually posted a reel that went kind of viral, I guess. I got 4 million views and had so many women in my inbox asking me about, marriage and just being a godly wife and things like that. So I've been slowly trying to get back to all the women that I've been getting emails, messages, DMs, flooded. So just been trying to get back to that and ask God for some wisdom with that, because obviously I'm not like a counselor or anything. So felt a little out of my depth with that, with people asking me all this stuff. But yeah, we'll get to that.
Just on that though, you don't have to be a counselor. I think a lot of people really enjoy, you being so open and vulnerable about our story and our journey, which is why people are drawn to it.
Yeah.
And they don't want it served like a counselor or a psychologist. They want it, the real work that obviously you've done and we've done together. So I think you don't have to come up with all the answers, but just continually provide.
Yeah, some of the questions just a little bit out of my depth though. So some of the questions I'm getting are wild, but I'll read some of them out later. And maybe we can answer a couple, or maybe I can bounce off you and we can, sometimes, because some people ask me things about their husband that I'm like, I actually have no idea. Maybe you could shed some light on that. But what have you been up to, babe? You had some exciting things happening in the works, which I'm really proud of you about.
Yeah, I'm super blessed. Obviously still talking about my trip to New Zealand. People are probably sick of hearing it, but I just think it was so special for me, one, to be asked to travel across to another country and deliver something that at the time I was kind of like, well, there's so many people in New Zealand that could do the exact same job. And
what were you doing? Because some people might not know.
Oh, for those that don't know, I was just delivering a wellbeing presentation. I do a workshop, obviously on the side, with mostly work with men, but that takes me to corporates, NRL clubs, sporting clubs. I've done a mix of different schools and stuff like that. And it's always obviously my passion project that I'm always wanting to do, and always open to be doing more of it. I've started making more contacts since that opportunity has opened more doors. But yeah, I think there was a lot of it was God centered. I think even the wellbeing manager said he was presented so many different opportunities. And
You got asked to speak to the Warriors. You forgot to mention that part.
yeah, well, I'll get there. But the NRL this year, they put out someone to go and speak to all the clubs, and I know Tommy, and Tommy's absolutely a legend. What he does with young men, and but they wanted to go in a different direction. So it was really humbling for Cliff and the team at the Warriors to reach out and ask me to come across and speak to the club, and to be able to do it. And I was so nervous, but I just feel right at home when I'm in that space, because again, like, I'm sharing my story. I'm talking to people where I've sat in those chairs before. I've sat and listened to people, and obviously I've walked that journey, and it's been a roller coaster. And I know a lot of players, despite how many games of NRL they're playing or where they are currently, it's a roller coaster of emotions at times playing professional sport. So yeah, it was really cool. And again, the connections I made since then, the doors are opening, and people reaching out and wanting me to come and talk. And yeah, I met a couple of guys on our Bible chat that I haven't met in person, and had dinner with them, and Augie and Tabita, and it was so powerful. Augie had his little son with him as well, and we spoke all night. And from that, T had something on his heart for a while, and he's got an event coming up in June, a Tonga for Jesus, and he's asked me to go over with the team and speak at this event. And yeah, he asked me the other day, and I don't know why, but it just got me really emotional. And I think eventually I come to terms with it, but I didn't feel qualified for it. And initially I was kind of like, well, I'm not Tongan. I can't go to a Tongan event if I'm not Tongan. But it's really nice to know that my heart for Jesus is having an impact on other people. And Tavita's words were, it's infectious, and I want people to hear your heart for Jesus. And that doesn't matter if I'm Tongan or not. That's pretty powerful. And again, I don't take any opportunity lightly. I'm really looking forward to it. Izzy Folau obviously will be there as well. And I just think it's cool to do life with these people, but then to be able to go over and this is all God's work. This isn't just, by chance or, so yeah, it's something, again, I've got a few meetings coming up to speak with other sporting clubs as well since, and it's just something I want to continually push into. So if you're listening to this, self-promotion, you want me to come out and talk to your business or whatnot, like, please reach out, because I think when it comes from experience, when you've walked that journey, it hits a little different to just getting information about, mental health or whatnot. But so yeah, that's what I've been up to.
It's cool to like watch you come kind of like 360, because when you started or you came up with this idea for Men of Gold, you wanted to essentially talk to people about your mental health journey and where you've been and that sort of thing, and share your story and help men be vulnerable and open up. But I remember at the start, you said, I don't want to make it about Jesus. I don't want to make it about my walk with Christ. I don't want to, I really want to keep it just a space for men where, we didn't have to talk about that sort of thing. And now watching you come to a place where I feel like in the last 15 or 16 months, your journey with God has just like accelerated, and your heart for Jesus has become like so strong. You're so on fire for that. And now, even though you're sharing like your journey and your testimony, God is such a part of that. And now coming from a place of like, oh, I don't want to share about God, has actually opened up so many more opportunities for you to, reach men, not in just a way of, talking to athletes and things like that about their mental health, but some of these people want to hear about Jesus. They want to hear about God, and that's not what your talks are about. But there's no shame in, your journey with that, and you always bring that into your testimony. And yeah, just seeing the doors that it opens as well for you has been really, really good to just see you so on fire for God, because I know I prayed for that for a really, really, really long time. Thinking back to, years and years ago when I was just praying for a godly husband. And even when we got married, I just thought that's not what I'm going to get. That's not what I have. And seeing after, 7 years of us being together, you finally living into that calling that God's got on you is really, really special. Um, I actually got a really beautiful message from one of the wives of a guy that went to that talk
He's a
in New
Warriors
Zealand.
player.
He's a Warriors player, yeah. And I just thought it was really cool that even the work that you do with men is amazing, but as we know, men are like the thermometer of the house. Like they literally set the temperature, they set the tone, they're the leader of the home. And I feel like the work that you do with men has such a greater impact because of their families that it affects, And I got this beautiful message from a wife who just said, like, thank you so much for the work that Dane has done and what you guys are doing and speaking so openly about your marriage and his mental health journey, because she said that they were kind of struggling and he was struggling mentally. And after the chat that you had, I don't know whether you spoke to him personally, but after your talk he went and spoke to the wellbeing guy, and she said from the day that you spoke he has just been completely different. He's just like done a 360, turned around, has just been like pleasant to come home to. I think it made him really aware of his role and how he was being, and obviously hearing you speak about how you journeyed with that and how you brought a lot of that energy home. Yeah, I think it's really awesome that it's just affecting not only men but their families, and essentially that's God's work.
Well, that's the ripple effect of the work.
Mm,
It's like if we can, help ourselves and get ourselves right, well, then everyone else, feels the impacts of that and
mm,
gets great joy from that as well. And I know that from my own experience. But going back to what you're saying about my testimony, I was like that early on because I probably wasn't as confident in my walk early on, and I was
mm,
probably more worried that I was pushing Jesus on people, and I was coming with an agenda that I was kind of talking about mental health, but just trying to slide in Jesus at the end. And I even had one of
mm,
my mentor mention it to me when I was at Melbourne, and he said to maybe make it more about your journey and not Jesus. And I love and respect him, but it's kind of like I'll never shy away from talking about it because it's like that's who's give me
mm.
this opportunity. This is created. If without him, I'm not here. So I'm like, I'm not leaving that out of my story because that's my testimony that he's created.
Yeah.
And I've always said that it's not my testimony; it's God's essentially using, um, you know, his love and what he can do through me. And that's why I've always said that the closer I get with him and reflect his heart, that's how I conduct myself every day and how I walk each and every day. People that don't know me and don't know that I am a faith, the best way for me to display that is through my actions. And
Mm,
I recently spoke about that, but it's, yeah, and my mindset's never changed. If I can help one person, I've done my job. And I know I help more than one person, and that's not being cocky. It's just a confidence I carry with what I'm talking about because I know that people connect with it. I even had the coach, Andrew Webster, after he come and gave me a hug, and I've never been hugged by a man so tight. And I could just tell he was such a down to earth man. Really had great conversation afterwards about it, and I just know that he needed to hear that as well.
mm,
And a few of the players, come up and said I really needed that today. So that's good, But like I said, you can help one person, you've done your job, but it's really nice to hear the feedback. But it just knows that you're on the right track, in
mm,
again essentially doing God's work. But and God uses us in different ways.
mm.
God uses my testimony to reach other people.
Yeah.
Um, and we don't have to push Jesus on anyone.
Mm,
That's their own journey. I've always said that because it's never been what anyone did to me.
mm,
It was an opportunity to, set the environment and set it up. And initially I was like, this seems way too good and I just want more of it.
Mm.
That's what you'll need to do for people. It's not because naturally you tell someone to do something, they'll push back. But if you show them the way and then lead them in the right direction, then yeah, God's powerful. He'll do the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes we forget that sharing our story is great, but ultimately, because we're Christians, at the end of the day, our sole purpose is to bring people to Christ and bring people to Jesus. And, you know, it's a part of your story. So sharing that as part of your story would be, you know, if you didn't do that, it wouldn't be doing, I don't think God would honor that as much as he has, you know. And I think that's why you have been having such, you know, amazing encounters with people because of that. And I think that maybe some men might go, oh, okay, well, like I can't talk to him about this and that because he might preach Jesus to me. But you've got such a way of explaining your journey with it that I think it helps people feel really open and really comfortable to talk to you about, you know, maybe feeling like they want to explore this idea of God and Jesus and things like that. So, yeah, I think it's really powerful what you're doing, and I think it's really amazing to, you know, see you leading in a way that honors God, because I know that that's just what he has for your life. I used to resent it, actually. I used to not so much resent your calling for God, but I think that I think I was actually having a conversation with our pastor. It would have been years and years and years ago, about your ego and about, I just thought, you know, he has this big ego and he just thinks that, you know, he's so great. And obviously we know that it wasn't like that behind the scenes. But I think he said to me something about, you know, you can see it as ego, but God might see it as he's got a call of leadership over his life. And I just thought that I can't see that right now. All I can see is him wanting to exonerate himself. But, and I say this a lot, I think that what kept me in our marriage was the fact that um, I could see what Jesus saw in you. I wasn't looking at what the world saw. Well, it was easy to just look at what the world saw, but I think what kept me there, that I was like, no, I know that God has so much more for him. And it was like I could see in the spirit of the man that God was calling you to be. And people always go, oh, you can't fall in love with someone's potential. Like, I think that's a real worldly thing to say, like, oh, well, you know, he's got potential, or, you know, you can't hold on to that because you think he's going to be a certain way, you think he's going to change. I think that I just held on to, I knew who God was creating you to be. And that leadership has just been such a calling on your life. And now to see it change from me focus to him focus, to Jesus focus, has been really, really beautiful to watch. And yeah.
Yeah, it's super encouraging when I'm getting other men reaching out that are loving what it, you know, even the content I put out on my social media and stuff like that, and they mightn't be as open about their journey, but it's always been encouragement. I just had a young bloke this morning. He's making his NRL debut on Sunday, and you know, just sent me a message, and I just wished him all the best. And he sent me a message, and it was so nice. And you know, you never know who you're impacting, and that's what I always say. And never underestimate your own journey and your own story. And some people feel, you know, unqualified to feel like they can have an impact, but I'm like, there's something in your life that you've been created for, to help other people, and you don't have to have a platform, or you don't have to, you know, be up in lights to do that. And I just think I know my you know, calling on my life, and not everyone does, and that's why I'm so, you know, in love with what I do, because it's like I know I've been created to do that.
What's that saying? God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Is that it?
I'm not sure, but it sounds all right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
But yeah, and I think too, going back to the resentment part, and we've talked about this before as well, but that comes from a lot of, you know, I was doing so much for everyone else, but I wasn't representing that at home. And so it's easy to us assume for you to go feel resentment and bitterness towards me when I was doing it for other people, but I wasn't fulfilling that to full capacity at home, and that's just reality. And I know that myself. I'm not denying that, but and I'm still no finished product. Up until this week, there's still areas I can be way better in. In my role and as a husband and a father and a stepfather. So, but there's been a long journey with that, and
what would you say to somebody who's listening? Maybe it's like a father or a husband or something that is struggling with, I think it's really common for men to be one person out in the world and then come home. We hear it from pastors, we hear it from athletes, we hear it from so many people. You're one person out in the world and to your workmates and things like that, but you come home and you bring all that with you. You struggled with that for so many years. It was almost like you used to have this dark cloud over your head that would bring into the home, and maybe like women that are listening totally feel that when their husband walks in. What would you say to a man who is struggling with that? Like, what did you have to journey through, maybe with God or with yourself? Or, what would you say to a man who's struggling with that, who wants to change?
Let go of pride and ego. I think that was the biggest one for me, because I was still, that flowed on from my footy career, where I felt like I was probably someone that I didn't come across as arrogant or whatnot, but I just feel like I could do all things in my own strength, and I could do this and do that, and everything was by my clock. And everything was when I was feeling good or whatnot. And like I've said before, it's everyone lived in my world, and I honestly believe that. Like, it wasn't something that I was just like, well, this is what should happen. I believe that's the way it should be. And so, I just become, as my journey went, I just knew that I had to properly surrender my life to Christ, because even though I had done it, I wasn't leading the way God wants me to lead. And essentially, I had to lay that all down and give up my ego, give up my pride, and be obedient to, my calling, and that took a lot of grace from you. That took a lot of patience. I say that in capital letters. But I think it's not about me, like, and it all comes back to, when I say this to a lot of people, it's just like, it all comes back to, carrying your own cross to a point where it's just like, this isn't your life anymore. You've got so much on your shoulders, as well to carry. And that's my family. That's, my kids. Like, this is what it's all about. It's not just me anymore. And once I continue to be obedient and actually lay my life down to Christ, properly, I started to understand that more. And it's, humbling, to a point. And but I think a lot of people don't want to let go of that. And a lot of it's got to do, I believe, a lot of men I see these days is, people, like, what they'll think of them, or, you to be a certain way or do a certain thing. It's just like, oh, I don't know how someone's going to take that. And I might be getting off topic here, but when I'm at work, people know that I'm a Christian. But I'm, even recently, just having small conversations, people asking questions. But I think because God has gifted me with an ability to, I don't know, whether it's a presence or not. I used to carry a really strong presence in a negative way. And like you said, that cloud over my head or whatnot when I walk into a room.
I used to say that I'd never met someone in my entire life that could literally walk into a room and affect the entire room. I'd never experienced it, where you could walk into a room and that's your call of leadership, but you could walk into our home and literally the whole entire mood, energy, everything could change. And the opposite as well. You could walk into a room, and I would see it all the time, where you would walk into a room of men and, you would light people up and people would open up to you. And I was like, whoa, this is insane that someone can affect the mood so intensely. And did you realize that for a long time?
Yeah. Well, and again, might sound like from an ego point of view, but I've always known that and again with my talks, and when I go out to schools, businesses, anytime I talk, I feel like I get people's attention. And I think it's an attribute of mine, especially when I'm vulnerable and open and honest with my story. I think some people look at me as this big tough bloke that, doesn't cry, doesn't do this, and when I do it, it just gives other people a perspective of like, oh wow, like, and from that masculinity point of view, it changes, their perception on what masculinity looks like. But I've always known that, but when it started affecting, and our whole marriage and everything was going around, it took that, for me to actually go, okay, maybe, because in my past marriage, I believed that I could do no wrong or do wrong, and my wife's going to stick around until she didn't. And I literally, that same ego-driven qualities that I had, I wouldn't call it a quality, but I possessed that, almost ruined my second marriage with you. So, try to educate people not to let it get to that breaking point, because you make a decision to go, actually, I don't want this anymore. Then I'm sitting here again, divorced twice, and still trying to work on myself, which, but getting back to the core part of what made me change, it's like, well, there's a lot of parts that did make me change, but I think the closer I got with God, the closer I realized what I needed to do, and what, all this other stuff in my life, the worldly things I don't need, and what God has provided me, that's all I need, and to work on that every day. And like I said, and I've always been a big advocate for doing the work. It's like, it's not just a tick a box and do it a few times. It's literally a daily choice.
What does that look like practically, if I can put you on the spot?
This turned into your podcast.
No, I know that there's a lot of men listening to this, non-Christian and Christian, who go, well, I don't have a relationship with God, or like, how does that look every day? Because a lot of men can be very non-self-aware. What does that look like thought patterns and things like that, and every day trying to walk better for a man who wants to go on that journey of being like, I really need to change.
Yeah, well, for me, I can only speak how I am each day, but it's like, I'm a real habitual person, real structured routine. So every morning I've got to get up, make a coffee, read the Bible, go to the gym, and that's all.
I'm the opposite.
That's all done before 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And for me, that's my foundation before I start the day. So positive coffee. I've got the Bible in, and I'm, reading God's word. And then I'm training. So I'm looking after not only my physical health, but my mental health. And I'm in a better mood. For those people that know me, when I've had a coffee and I've gone to the gym, then you give me a good chance to be at my best. And I joke about it, but that's what works for me. So I've talked about non-negotiables, for us, is what I need in my life. They're three things I need: coffee, the Bible, and the gym.
It's true though, because a lot of men, they start their days scrolling, maybe looking at things that they shouldn't be looking at, getting up, not being healthy, not being disciplined, not taking care of themselves. So I think that's a really good place to start, because when you start taking care of yourself, not from an ego place, but from a place of like, hey, I want to better myself, I think a lot of men can then, like, it gets that ball rolling for sure.
Well, yeah, that's how I start my day. But then straight away, like, even from a biblical point of view, you're tested as soon as I get to the gym. And we've joked about this, or whatnot. But, like, the more you actually read on that and people have that, conversation, it's just like, the world is like put so much in front of you every day, and it's just like, people don't understand lust. Like, it's like they can look at a woman, or they can see this, and it's okay because you're not doing anything about it. And I think for a long time I didn't really understand that to a point, but I think as men, naturally, you see a woman, or you see, someone at the gym or whatnot, naturally men are like just drawn to that, so, and we were watching something the other day, which, a leading pastor in the US was talking about it. You mentioned, if you stepped out and seen a good looking woman, like, he's got to check his heart, and so little things like that. Early on, I probably wasn't like as understanding as that, but it's like, they're all little things that it's like, are you going to allow your heart to sink into those, what your eyes can see, or is it, move on? Like there's a lot of, because again, you mightn't think that it's affecting you. But eventually, the more you do it, and the more your heart is drawn to that stuff, it's affecting your marriage, because you're actually, as the word says, you're lusting after other things of the world that's not biblical, but it's not honoring your wife, your partner. And go, are you going to chime in?
It also comes from a place where that's what you grew up around. You're a footy boy, it's in your culture. You talk to men who are tradies, it's in the culture. It's what we get so used to. And so, and we're not just talking about lust and things like that. It's talking about checking your heart of things like, is this right for me in my mind? Is this right for my marriage? Is this good for my family? And I think it's built into our culture. So to be hyper aware of that isn't natural. So it's like a practice thing. It's a constantly asking yourself, is this conducive to like my mental health, me getting better, that sort of thing.
And I've got a lot of worldly mates as well, that don't understand that. So that's a challenge as well. Like,
Sorry.
but I mentioned even like with work, sometimes it can be such a place where people gossip a lot or talk about other people. And I was talking with the boys the other week. I have to step away from that stuff because it's not. I don't like it. I don't like when people do it, and it's not right either. But they're just little examples. But I think as well with that journey is like God's positioned like-minded men in my life as well, which has been
powerful.
Do not underestimate that. The people in my life right now that are Christians and that God's drawn me into has been a game changer for me. And it means that it doesn't mean that I don't have friends of the world anymore, but it just the more you're around like-minded people, it's like anything. You surround yourself with like-minded people, like you're just going to be drawn to that even more. And it's set so many people on fire. Like every week we meet on Wednesday nights, and it's just been so powerful, led by Eddie and Izzy. And it's, just seeing the testimonies and each week the encouragement that comes, and guys, just getting so much bolder in their faith and just sharing. And that's what excites me, because again, we're doing what God wants us to do and multiplying his kingdom. And that's essentially like, and then coming back to being home again, I can be really selfish at times, still can be, becoming a Christian doesn't make you a perfect person. Life becomes harder in some senses because there's so many things that get presented to you that you've got to, like you said before, choose, is that serving God or not? Like that's a heart posture thing. But there's still things that I need to get better at. But, being more family focused and
which
asking.
you're still working on.
Yeah, I said that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like again, just thinking outside my self and just going, well, what can I do for other people? And again, I do it, but for a long time I was serving everyone else and not people in front of me. And I think sometimes you could just get used to having a wife and kids at home, and that's just your normal, and you can just, sometimes that's your comfort zone where you come home and just relax and not do anything because you've been busy all week at work and whatnot. But you need to prioritize the things that are important in your life, because work's not that important, and the things are that are in front of you are. And I think the more I've made that a focus, especially Jesus, my life's changed dramatically.
Yeah, well, two things. I, as a wife, am incredibly grateful for the men in your life who started surrounding you and keeping you accountable. We have one of your best mates, Simon, who I owe so much to. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional.
I love you, brother.
For a long time, you didn't have, men who, who kept you accountable. And I went to him a lot, heartbroken, and he's a good, godly man. And he prayed for us, and he prayed for you, and he kept you accountable. And, as a wife, like, it's really important for your husband to have godly men and just good men. around your husband, even if, you know, he's not a Christian and he doesn't have Christian friends. Get him around some people who have good marriages, who are a great dad, you know, who they look up to, because, you know, the 5 people that you surround yourself with are pretty much who you become. And I just am so grateful for the men in your life, you know, Izzy and Eddie and Michael and all the people that, you know, speak into your life. I'm just so grateful for that, because you have changed so much because of them. I need to get myself together. um, yeah, it's been really powerful to watch you become stronger as a husband and father and Christian because of the men in your life. So, I totally forgot the other point that I was going to talk about. But yeah.
But just on that too, like Simon, one of my best mates, like he has kept me accountable. He's not one of them mates that just, you know, pat me on my back either. Like, he's a great man of God, and he's always keeping me accountable, telling me things at times that it's easy to, you know, not say because you don't want that confrontation. And yeah, he's doing it because he loves me, and I've always said that. Like, the friends in my life and the mates I have, I'd like to think that if they could see something in me that needs to be better, they'd just literally tell me how it is. And if there's a kickback from that, it means it's truthful because it's hurting you. Because sometimes you don't want to hear the truth, and it's just easier to just kind of go by. But I love Simon, and I love what he's, you know, done for us and for me individually. But again, it comes back to, it's like these people didn't walk into our life just by accident, you know. And we share so many great interests, and he's only at our house yesterday, and just a funny man as well, you know. Like, and we talk about that in our group, like, you know, we laugh so much, you know, with our jaywalkers group. And you know, a lot of people got this, you know, perception of just like we're so straight, prim and proper as Christians, but we have a good time. Don't get us wrong. But I think too, like, you were a little bit off topic, but you were sharing a post that you showing me that I did come across, and it was a guy. He's coming up to his baby shower, and he was, you know, talking about how, like, the world have always gone, you know, you go to the pub and you know, you're celebrating the baby by, you know, just getting drunk and doing this, and nobody understands why, but it's just a worldly thing you've always done. And you know, don't quote me, but I think he caught up with his mates and they went and got coffee and
went for a run.
did a run or whatnot. But even that in itself, it's like, we're all sold, like, you know, to have a good time, you've got to go out and drink and party and do all that. And, you know, it doesn't interest me at all. And I think that comes back to, again, surrounding yourself with the right people, and the people that don't want to do that anymore. And there's people that are still doing that, and they're lost. Like, they're trying to find something and they still haven't found it. And again, there's times where I'm just like, you just need Jesus, like, without pushing it down people's throats. But it's yeah, there's so many different things that, again, the world can present us. But the more, you know, I'm surrounded by good people and good, strong Christian men and families, like, it's just so natural. Like, we don't even, a lot of people, you know, you meet for the first time, and it's like anything, you got a similar interest and you got the same values. It's like, it just works.
Yeah. And I think as well, I remembered what I was going to say when you were talking about putting your family first and stuff. You know, as Christians, we believe that, you know, you put God first, then you put your marriage, then you put your kids, and then work, and everything else comes after that. And I think, just as a rule in general, whether you're Christian or not, if I look at people who are, you know, happy in life, they prioritize their marriage, they prioritize their kids, and then everything else comes after that, you know, and they put God first. And I feel like when you have that model, everything flows well. And so if you're someone who's listening that's like, you know, you work all the time and you're always away and you're doing these sorts of things, you're wondering why your life feels a little bit in shambles, it's because, you know, there should be some kind of structure. Because when you and your wife are good, like, I know that when we're good, everything else just feels good. The home feels good. Like, we're we're good with the kids, like we're having a good time, we're happy. And at the end of the day, like that's who we spend the most time with. That's where we truly thrive, in relationship. I know men who, their whole life is being a father and a husband, and they're the happiest people I've ever met, and I think that's just, it's God's design, whether you're Christian or not. So yeah, work on that at home first, and everything flows from that. But yeah.
Now, we've both been talking a lot on our social media about leading and not leading, and it's been a big part of what you've been sharing with a lot of people as well. Because in that time, I'll let you do the talking on this, but you were focused on what I wasn't doing, and I copped the brunt of it. Where it's not a feel sorry for me session, but it was just like,
I might read out the post if that's okay.
Go for it.
Because I feel like that might kind of capture what we're talking about. So I put up a reel, and it said, if you're a godly wife and your husband doesn't lead, first ask yourself this. Sorry. For years, I said my husband didn't lead our household. No matter how much I begged him, corrected him, took him to church, and told him to pray, nothing changed. 18 months ago, I was at my breaking point, but instead of changing him, God started changing me. He gently began to reveal my part in the dance. He asked me, do you criticize more than you affirm? Do you correct him in front of others? Do you pray for him or vent about him? Do you trust him to lead, or do you take over before he can? And I realized something humbling. What I was doing wasn't inspiring leadership, it was suffocating it. So I stopped trying to control, and I started speaking life. I started respecting him, especially when it was hard. I started praying more than I complained, and slowly things shifted, not because I forced it, because I made space for it. If you're waiting for your husband to change, maybe start by asking God what he wants to refine in you. Leadership grows best in an atmosphere of respect, encouragement, and prayer. And that, I think, a lot of people related to that and said, like, wow, I really needed to hear that. And that didn't come from a place of, oh, well, I've been through it and I can speak on it. That is, like, even reading that, I'm like, that is a hard journey for me, and it still is. Like, if anyone knows me, knows that I'm a very, very stubborn person. No comments, very stubborn person. I have the tendency to speak the truth and not so much in love. I am more of a, corrective criticism kind of person. And so it's really hard for me. It was really hard for me to look at my part. And for years, I've always been like, I wanted to go to the psychologist, and I wanted to read all the marriage books, and I wanted to do all this, and I wanted to pray for you. And I just thought for a long time it was all your fault. And the flesh in me wants to be like, well, it was all your fault. You were the one doing the most bad stuff. But I wasn't taking accountability of my own heart. And I tried to, but my pride would come up so much that I'd be like, I would pray to God, but I would vent about you. I would talk down about you in front of you to people. I was always, there was a long time where I literally had nothing nice to say about you. And that's like the truth. It sounds really bad, but I feel like probably a lot of women might be able to relate. I constantly complained about you, and without realizing for a long time, that was shaping my heart. And then I'd go and I'd pray about you, but it was like, God, just change him, please, help him, be a better stepdad, and help him be a better husband, and, convict him. And it's not that those prayers were falling on deaf ears, because God hears our prayers, but he was more concerned with my heart, because for a long time, I didn't realize that I had to just let God work on your heart and not try and take control of that. And there was a long time where I was like, have you been praying? Have you been reading your Bible? Like, there was a long time you didn't want to come to church, and I would spend, countless times on my own at church, crying out to God to change you. And, yeah, like from that post and me writing that, it's still a journey. It's still really hard, but taking accountability for my part has been powerful. Like, it's very hard sometimes to compliment you. And I think even the other night I said to you, like, what more could I be doing, or how can I make you feel more loved? And you were like, if you could just, what did you say? Like, words of affirmation more. And I was like, oh, so you want to be complimented more? And I was but I was like, you know what? That's what you need. Like, you are a man of.
Well, it's more of like, I know what I'm doing wrong. It'd be nice to hear what I'm doing right.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's something that I still work on. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing great at it. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, it's like, positive reinforcement. It works.
I think too, from a husband's point of view, sometimes I do things because I'm not waiting for a pat on the back. But then after a while, you're kind of like, everyone's used to me doing this because that's just what I've always done, you know. But then sometimes you're like, it would be nice just for someone to tell you that you're doing all right.
Yeah, yeah. And I said that to a woman that I was talking to, because her partner was also like a football player. And I just said, these men, like, they've been conditioned. A lot of men have been conditioned that their love is performance based and words based. Like, if they get told that they're doing good and they're doing well, they've been conditioned to feel like that's love. And whether that's right or wrong, as a wife, we are called to respect. And sometimes when that feels really hard, because I remember a season where I was like, there is nothing that I can tell him that he's doing right. How am I meant to respect him when he's not, loving me? And that was really hard to journey through. But just finding those really, really, really small things, because it compounds. And even if it's like, hey, thanks for mowing the lawn today. I never say that to you, but I should.
That'd be the day.
Thanks for, going and getting those groceries for me because I was stressed out. Like, just finding those little things really helps, because once I feel like once I speak more life into you, you want to become that man. And like, you can relate it to parenting as well. Like, you say things to kids that they do well, they want to do better. They want to do more of that because they want more praise. And that's not a bad thing. Like, if you want your husband to lead more in the home and you want him to be more loving, you almost have to pull those qualities out of him by telling him those small things that he's doing right. And it feels really hard. And sometimes you really have to just swallow your pride and be like, I literally feel 1% of this. But once you continue to do that, I feel like you do change. But in terms of like leading in the home, because this has been such like a big topic in our lives lately, what do you feel like helps you step back? Because I am a bit of a control. We're both control freaks, to be honest. And like, sometimes why are you pulling that face? Sometimes it's literally like we're just fighting against each other. But I remembered the other day something, it was something so small, but I remember thinking and being like, I'm not fighting him. We need to figure out the issue. The issue is what's the problem, not both of us. And it's almost like taking the person from the other side of like the table and putting them on your side, and putting the issue that's in the middle of you on the other side, and going, how can we do this together and look at the issue for itself and figure that out. And once, there's a lot of times we're not on the same page, but I feel like the more that I have given away that control and be like, let's just see what he does here, has helped you feel more empowered in the home. And we, like, truth be told, we struggle with this. Like, we struggle especially like with parenting and things like that. But there are times that it takes a lot for me to just step back and go, okay, I need to trust him here. And whether they do it right or wrong, taking a place of going, okay, well, like, let's talk about this another time, because we got into a habit of just screaming and fighting about it right then and there in the moment when I'm like, you didn't do that right. I feel like so many women will be able to relate to this, of just being like, okay, well, you didn't do that correctly, or I would have rathered you do it this way, or I would have rathered you do it my way. I think we've gotten a lot better at not having that argument right then and there and talking about it later. Or sometimes if it irks me and we just leave it, then I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But letting you have some control I think helps you lead a little bit better and lead me and be a bit more of a spiritual leader in the home. We're still perfecting it a lot, but
It'll never be perfect.
no.
I think the biggest thing is allow me to mess up, not be like, you're looking out the door like I'm doing the right thing, or you've asked me to do something and you're keeping an eye on me. Like if you didn't do that all the time, we would have been here on time.
Oh, okay.
But I know when I say it to you, I'm like, I'm not a child. Like, believe it or not, I'm 40 at the end of this year.
Well, sometimes I say stop acting like a child then.
But I'm like, I've, walked a life, at times. I'm like, it's not like I've just, fallen out of bed and just been this person. Like I've had a bit of experience in this. So even though I've got it wrong a lot of the time, I still know how to lead and how to do things in the home. Just like you said, how you want it done is sometimes, not the way I do it, but it's still the same result. And I think sometimes it's not always, but even when it is, it's just a different path to get there, but it still gets the same result. I struggle with that. I've struggled with that all my life because I'll watch someone, I'll try to delegate something, even if it's at work or back in my other roles. And I'm like, I just want to do it because I know the way to do it and how it'll get done properly. But that's my own fault because you had to be pretty much a husband and wife in the household for such a long time. So naturally you probably go to still do that, but then go, oh, actually he's okay at doing that now.
Yeah.
But it's allowing me to kind of do it. And then if I get it wrong, and I've said this to you a lot, it's like what I would rather is if I get it wrong, let's talk about it later. Because if it's not, crucial in that moment and nobody's dying, then maybe we sit down when all the kids are going to bed and talk about a couple of things that because I think in that point, you're not sweeping it, but you're just bringing up a healthy discussion to go, like you've been doing really well, but I just thought the way you did that, you did do it, but you probably, here's some tips. I just find that's, in our journey works because it's like you're still allowing me to do it, but then I'm okay to be corrected.
Yeah.
And
And for I think as well, it took us a long time to get to that. We had to go to therapy for that to happen. And if you're someone who thinks, I had someone say to me the other day, I don't want to go to therapy because I don't want to believe that we're that bad. If I can stress one point, therapy doesn't make you look a certain way or be a certain way or be like, oh my gosh, we're in such a bad place that we need therapy. I truly tell people, like, it doesn't matter if we all had premarital counseling before we got married, like that would make such a difference to our marriages. I think that therapy is great for even healthy marriages. And we got to a point where we came to a decision. We went to therapy. We were literally about to get divorced and I was about to leave, and you had gotten to like the lowest point in our marriage. And we got to a point where our therapist said to us, look, right here, we are going to make a decision that, Dane, you are going to try, you're going to make a promise that you are going to be different. And I sat there and I said, well, I don't trust him because he said that a million times. And he said, well, you guys have never gotten to this place before. So let's just make a decision here. And he held me accountable and he said, when Dane tries, that's great. But when he stuffs up, you have to give him grace. You can't be on him, because we got into this pattern of like we'd have a fight and you'd change for 2 weeks and then it'd be back to the same old Dane again. And that cycle just repeated itself. And I would always be like, see, you're not changing. See, you're not this and that. And I had to go, okay, trust is a really big part of our relationship. And while it scared me to trust you all over again, I had to just go, I have to trust that God has this, and I have to trust that God's speaking to him, not me. And when you did stuff up or when you did fall short, not hold you to this place of like, well, see, you're not even trying and you're not doing this. I think that's really important for a lot of wives, to not just condemn their husbands straight away as soon as they fall short. And like, I'm speaking to myself here too. That in itself is powerful, because I used to be an awfully nagging wife. Like, even when I slip back into it now, I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good. It's usually like the week before my period or like something like that, and I just start getting like real nitpicky. Like, I'm not going to look at your face because you're annoying me.
I actually love it. Yeah, when you're nagging.
Yeah. And you know, like, I get real naggy, and that destroys a man's soul. That literally can just be so tiring. And when a man walks into the home and it's straight away, you've done this wrong, and you're not doing this right, and that sort of thing. Like,
You just want
how
to
do
get
you?
out. Like, that's what I did though. That's why when
and
you
you
were
would
like
escape.
that,
Yep.
I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And which obviously pulled us apart, even though I knew I needed to do all the work. When we're in a bad spot, it was drawing me away from our relationship altogether, you know, because I wasn't there, because I just felt like, well, I don't do anything right. And then, you know, she's nagging this and that. It's like, what am I doing here? You know, and it affected our marriage, even though, like I said, I held the cards that I needed to do majority of the work. But
yeah, you have to come together.
In that process, you know, it was, it wasn't working, you know. So
yeah, and you have to sometimes realize your dance too, because Dane, like, you come from a family and a background where everything gets swept under the rug. I come from a family where if you have a problem, you voice it straight away. So for me to keep stuff in that was annoying me felt like torture, felt like actual, like I was going to die if I didn't let it out. But realizing that we were both so different in that way, and figuring out a way that we could come together. And look, like, we're not perfect. Sometimes now, like, we still have to work on our communication. We don't fight 24/7 like we used to, but sometimes we also don't bring up things that we should, because we know that it's going to cause a big argument, and we don't have the tools yet to talk about that stuff in a healthy way. And that's just real, you know, like, that's something that we're still journeying through. But realizing that you both have to play a part, even if you think that it's your husband's fault through and through, you do have a place to start, like, you know, and, you know, go to God, put godly people around you, put good people around you that speak life into your marriage, because God wants you, God favors marriage, and he wants you to be, you know, together and married. And so, yeah, anyway,
to wrap that part up, because we'll move on, we've got some questions from people who've sent in, but I think the important takeaways for me, and, you know, whether you're a Christian or not, therapy, you know, working on yourself, all these things, they're non-negotiables. Like, it's not like, I'll find another way to do it, because, again, big believer, it's like you have to do the work, and and it's not like just guessing your way through. It's like going and even seeing the psychologist when things are good. I even said, like, there's times where I get to a point where I'm like, I've got a psychology appointment this week, but I feel good. Maybe I'll push it back because I don't need it this week. And sometimes, like, they've been great. They haven't. You get there and you still have a conversation, but it's about building a relationship with that psychologist as well, because he or she gets to know you, and then potentially, like, gets to a point where it reveals things out of you that you didn't even know yourself. And again, it's not proving who's right or wrong. It's what can you do individually and as a marriage to better this family. And we did. Like, I was seeing a psychologist, you were, then we're going to marriage counseling. Like, there's so much that had to go into that. And it wasn't just a, you know, do it and then it's done. It was ongoing, like months and months and months of doing it. So first and foremost, you can't ignore the work. And if you want to, then you're leaving everything to chance. There's no two ways about that. Like, if you decide, oh no, I should be okay, or I'll do this or do that, like, do the proper work. Don't waste your time on all this woohoo stuff that the world sells you.
And it's okay to need help. Like, I think a lot of guys think, oh, well, I know what my issues are, so I don't need help. What would you say to that?
That you don't need help.
Like, a lot of guys think that.
Yeah, well, they do. Well, how's your marriage? How's
Yeah.
your relationship with your children?
Mm.
How's your friendship circle? What's that look like?
Mm.
And straight away, you start, as soon as people are saying they don't have an issue, they know they have an issue. They're
Mm.
just trying to deflect because they don't want to do it. They refuse to do the work. And then they'll rely on, I'll get me back up here, but then they start relying on like a weekend away, like a retreat for 2 days will fix their life. And
Mm.
again,
We won't get into
no,
that.
I won't. No judgment here, but I'm passionate about it because the world are getting sold that. The world are
Yeah.
getting sold. Come to this men's retreat,
You'll be fixed.
and you'll be fixed, and
Yeah.
then all your issues are gone.
Mm.
And I'm like, people are getting like sold this dream. It's so false.
It's
and
everyday work.
yeah, 100%. And again, like my men's group, I see it all the time. It's like, and I'm beating my head against the wall some weeks, and when I'm hosting my men's group, it's like, where is everybody?
Mm.
Everyone's like on social media or they're there, and I speak to so many men, and it's like, oh, I'm having troubles with my wife, my marriage is on the brink, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, what are you doing about it? And as soon as they start umming and ahhing, it's like men aren't willing to do the work. It's like, and that's why I offer, men of gold to people. Come and just sit around, have the opportunity to hear from other people. And I've always said too, like, it's not just about you. We weren't designed to just live a life by ourselves. And we've got men out there that have walked a journey, just like myself, to sit with other like-minded men and actually share what's going on in their life. Because I've been going out running a men's group in Ipswich, and there's some like all different walks of life out there, but some powerful conversations. Like I was there last week, and just soon as you give one person the opportunity to talk and then they share and we go around and people share, it's so encouraging. Like you leave there and you see some of them men, you think if these young guys like can come and be vulnerable and open, and they probably got half the issues of some of the people I know, but they're doing the work. They're actually showing up and want to be better, making that decision. It's like you continue to avoid the work, then like I said, you're leaving everything to chance, and you've only got yourself to blame. You can't point the finger at everyone else.
I remember one conversation. We'll like go on to the questions next, but I remember this, and it like is always stuck in my mind when we were going through all this work and we were going and seeing psychologists and that sort of thing. And you were doing the work every day. Like I could see almost sometimes the wrestle in your mind of like one way to respond and another and that sort of thing. And we were laying in bed one day and you said, like, you kind of broke down and just said like, I don't feel like I know who I am. I feel a little bit lost. And I remember saying, because you're doing this work, because you're going from what you know, which is like pride, ego, selfishness, all that sort of thing. You're trying to literally change that and become this new person. And the work is like messy, it's painful, it's hard. Like when you are struggling with your flesh of how you've been for like 30 something years to try and do things a different way, it's really hard. And it's really hard to recognize things about yourself that you don't want to recognize. It's really hard to be accountable and things like that. And I think a lot of men get scared of that and be like, well, I'm good with how I am, I don't want to be a different person. But from my view now, seeing you are the man that you've always been, but those negative things and attributes that you have are slowly like falling away, and you're becoming more of like this man that you've always been, but in such a positive way. And it feels weird when you're in that process of becoming someone different and feeling like maybe you're losing yourself, but that's what it feels like. That's natural. It's what it's meant to feel like, and I just that was stuck in my mind for such a long time that I think a lot of men probably get scared of that. It is hard work. It's hard work, but on the other side of that is, just, well, you can speak to it, being so happy and more content and, yeah.
Yeah, and I literally, and again, I don't want to overstep here, but I had a mate call me last night, and I won't get into the details, but he tried to take his own life, and I was having a conversation with him, and literally having this same was like, mate, I know your heart. I know who you are underneath all of what the world sees. And I was like, I want to be able to, for you to look at yourself in 5 years' time and to look back at this moment and be like, I'm so proud of where I've walked through and this journey, because the transformation that God can do in your life and what you can do if you apply yourself, mate, all this will be a distant memory of what you've gone through. And he's got a young daughter, and there's things in his life that he's got to live for, but he's missing a lot of that because of choices he's made. And like, it breaks my heart that I know this is happening all over this world, and it's why I do what I do. But just to talk that through to someone, to go, sometimes we can fixated on what's happening in front of us and the world like it's going to end because of our circumstance. But knowing that you commit to doing the work, that you can one day be proud of who you are.
Yeah. No, it's powerful because it comes from a place of, you've known that, you've walked that, you have been in that exact place, and you're where you are now, and that's your heart for men like that. Is just, there's not many people like you. There's not many people who care as much as you do. And yeah, that's why we do this. That's why we talk about this, and we're so passionate about helping marriages and men and, that sort of thing. So yeah.
I think the biggest one to it all is, like, people get to a point where they feel like they're not worthy, and what they've done and who they've hurt and all these things, that how can I ever be loved again, and understanding God's love, and still some days I can't comprehend it, because, we can look at it and go, I don't deserve this. But when you know that you're loved and you do deserve it, and you're living out, your life the way it's meant to, like, that's all part of the story. And that's, like I said, my mate last night, it's like, there's a story that's going to be birthed here if you choose to go down that right path, because there's people going to have to go through everything that you've gone through and want to know that there's a way through, and you're a living example. And that's why, like I said at the start of this, it's like, don't underestimate your testimony, because, it will help someone, and that's why I've always said, be open, talk to people, have these conversations, because one conversation can, save a life. But anyway.
100%.
Do you want to do these questions?
Yeah. We'll get to a few questions. We'll do a quick change of pace. So someone said that they wanted to, well, this is like a huge, but blending families, separation, and coming together, and hope for the future. I mean, hope for the future is like us. Like, we have blended families. You have been through a divorce, like separation. There's just, that's a huge topic to unpack, obviously, but coming together, I think we've just sort of spoken on that about, whether that's therapy, whether that's getting to a place where you both are on the same page of, we want this marriage to work, because for a long time, gosh, we would throw around the word divorce. We would throw around the word divorce, a lot. And we would just be like, one foot in, one foot out. Okay, well, if this doesn't work, I'm out of here, Then I would always be like, I don't need you. I've got myself. I've done this before on my own. And coming to a place now where we don't really talk about that, unless, like, very rarely do we say anything like that now, because we both know that, okay, we're in this for the long haul. We're doing the work. And if you're a blended family, I think we'll do like a whole episode on blended families, but it's hard. Like, it's really, really, really hard. I feel for anyone going through it. And we have to be on the same page. Like, and it's hard. We're still not on the same page with a lot of things. But there's a lot of external factors. So I think the main tip is that, knowing that it's you two fighting for your marriage and fighting for your family, and coming together for that, and not letting external factors affect that, because for a long time we let those external factors affect us in our marriage. And knowing that we have the same goal, like we have the same goal of, having a healthy family and having a healthy marriage. And yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
Not really. Like you say,
Okay.
there's a lot to unpack with the
Yeah.
blended family thing, but yeah, what you said's good. But I think a lot of that too, I let that affect me, the external impacts on our blended family for a long time, but is really hard, especially the change. Obviously, when two come together with different parenting styles, and and it's like getting onto an understanding that you have to be on the same page. But we rushed into it way too early. We've said that.
Do not recommend.
Yeah, no, and I think too, because we're thinking of ourselves there, and we just assumed the kids were young and innocent, and they'll get along, and almost forced to just be brothers straight away. And would we have done it differently? Probably, but we can only do what we've done now, and again, it's different, and everyone's situation's different. So it's not like a one size fits all. But
Yeah.
we're just trying to do what we can. We don't have my boys at home anymore, and so that's been obviously tough.
Yeah.
Not seeing them, and two, like from a father's point of view, and with my boys, like Jet's 16 and Blazer's almost 14, and I know when I was that age, like when I had spare time, I wasn't wanting to catch up with my old man. Like I wanted to get out and ride my bike with my mates and do things like that. So I think understanding that they do not take a lot of things personal if they don't want to catch up with you all the time. It's just, for me, it's just being present when I do get that opportunity, make the most of it. And that's all I can really do.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, we'll probably do two questions because of the time. What to do when my husband doesn't believe in Jesus anymore? I think that you could probably speak to this more so in like the way that I approached you when it came to, I was a Christian, you were not a Christian. Yeah, maybe you can speak to that.
Well, I suppose on that one, anymore is like, or does that mean
what's happened?
Yeah, did he have a faith and now he's choosing not to? I think a lot of decision on that can be, again, ego led and pride, or there's circumstances that have happened that have led to him feeling this way. I know it's easy, like having faith, like when things are good is one thing, but when things are not so good, that's so hard, because then the enemy has a great way of getting into those times and doing his greatest work, being so deceitful and telling you things that almost side with your thoughts, and you start believing this stuff. So without knowing the background of that, I think if someone's turning away from God, I think that's a spiritual thing and a personal journey that there's a lot of work that has to happen there. And whether there's hurt, whether there's something that's happened that's come back, because you don't just wake up one day and go, I don't believe in God anymore. Something's got to happen. But yeah.
But how I would suggest as well that you just need to be Jesus to your partner, because I never forced anything on Dane. I just said, like, look, I go to church. You can come with me. You don't have to. I prayed for him, but I remember like someone gave me a really good advice and just said, just reflect Jesus to him. Like, show him who Jesus is and be gracious, be kind, be, humble, giving, sacrificial, all those sorts of things. And show him who Jesus is through your actions, and that will bring him closer. And I think it did. There's also a really amazing book that had a lot to do with saving our marriage called Power of a Praying Wife by Stormy something. Powerful book because it shows you how to pray for your husband in different areas, whether your husband is a believer or not. I think it's really important to lift up your husband in prayer. And there were times where I was reading that book, not wanting to pray and bawling my eyes out, and just wanting you to be close with God. And I feel like prayer is so powerful. So just keep praying, and just keep reflecting Christ to your husband. There's another one saying, I've read the book Created to be His Helpmeet. I haven't read that multiple times, but I still feel it's so deep in me to react in such a feminist way. I was conditioned my whole life that women can be the leader, and I know it's wrong, but I don't know how to be like the wife that is silent, obedient, and no opinions, etc. God doesn't call us to have no opinions and be silent. That's something that I will say as someone who is very opinionated, stubborn person. I don't think that God ever asks us to just not say anything and just accept our marriage for how it is. Like you have been created to be your husband's helpmate. You were created to help him, guide him. He was created to lead you and all those sorts of things. But I think it's very, very common these days to understand that. It's very common these days to be conditioned that women can be the leader. There's a huge feminist movement in our world, and I'm not saying that that's wrong or right, but if you are a Christian and if you are looking at the Bible and you follow the Bible as a way of life, it does ask you to be a servant to your husband, to show him respect. And it's your husband's role to show you love, and those things don't come naturally. Like respect comes naturally to men. That's what you've been taught. Love comes naturally to women. So for God to flip that around, it is asking us to be obedient, and it's not natural for us. It doesn't come with our flesh. Our flesh wants to do the opposite, but men respond better to respect. And I think for a lot of women, that's really hard to give, depending on what your childhood was like, all that sort of thing. And you might grow up with a single mum who was incredibly powerful, and she was the leader in the home. Of course, you're going to believe that, but there is a design for marriage, and it is that the mantle is placed on the husband. And we see time and time and time again that if a woman is trying to lead and control, it doesn't end in a healthy marriage. Like it ends in confusion, and you see all these men just, struggling to lead and struggling to parent and all these sorts of things because the woman won't let him. And yeah, I just think that if you're following the biblical way, you have to go back to what does my flesh want right now, and what do I want to take charge of and all that sort of thing. But what is my true core value? That is being obedient to Christ. And what does the Bible say about it? And it's a real struggle. And you need to continuously go back to that and go, well, this is what I believe. This is what God's asking me to do. And having some really good godly people in your life, like if you go to church, make sure you've got some elders around you. Make sure you've got godly people in your life to speak into that, because I've been a Christian my whole life. I had no idea what God said about marriage. I had no idea how to read the Bible about what a godly marriage was meant to be like. And I had to learn that from people. I had to learn that from other Christians. So that would be my advice. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't.
No, I just spoke way too much, eh? Should we wrap it up? That was only 3 questions, but I feel like we've gone over a bit.
I think we'll have time to do more in the future, but again, I just think it was good just to kind of talk about things that we've been talking about, and just share what's going on in our life. But again, if there's anyone out there that's listened to this that wants to reach out, you can reach out on Instagram or contact us. There's some stuff in there that hopefully can help people, and that's why we do it. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast.
It's my pleasure.
Maybe we'll start our own, and then we can.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
Busy enough at the moment.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks guys for tuning in.
Yeah, and I'll I just think, like I say, with it all, it's something that we want to continually do. And we're just grateful that we have the opportunity, and God's positioned us in a way to talk about it. So, yeah.
Awesome. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rise Above podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and be part of these real conversations. A big thank you to Active Coolangatta for proudly sponsoring this podcast. Your support means a lot. You can catch every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.